Hello, my name is Michael. Welcome back to the channel. Today I am going to be starting a new vlog about my experience creating a piece for the Her Universe fashion show, which is at San Diego Comic-Con, and as of the posting of this video was July 21st. And this is pretty much going to be my experience making my piece and going to the show and traveling around in California for the first time. So my design is actually right there behind me, but we're gonna post some pictures here. So my design for the Her Universe fashion show is a Doctor Strange design. So the Her Universe fashion show is a geek couture fashion show. And basically what that means is couture is like an original, one-of-a-kind, handmade piece that's made to fit one particular person's body. So that's kind of what couture means. Geek couture is just anything nerdy. So kind of our prompt was anything celebrated at Comic-Con. So the design could be any kind of superhero, any kind of TV show, any kind of nerdy thing that anybody would enjoy. And you create an original piece based on that. And so of course I picked Doctor Strange because he's been taking up a lot of room in my brain for the past several years with the Multiverse of Madness coming out, getting super hyped for that. I was like, I've got to make a Doctor Strange piece. So the piece draws from several different fashion inspirations, mostly from menswear that's really been exciting me over the past couple of years. In my opinion, menswear tends to be pretty boring. There's really not that much going on in menswear. You go to the Met Gala and it's a bunch of guys in black tuxedos. I get really bored from that, and so when something comes along that really excites me about menswear, I take note. And so one of those was an Alexander McQueen suit from 2020. I loved the asymmetrical skirt feature on it. I thought that was such just a departure from what you would traditionally see as a men's suit. And then also this Randy Ram cape and suit combination that Billy Porter wore to the Golden Globes, and I just thought it was incredible. The cape, the drama, the embroidery, how beautiful it was. So those two were my main fashion inspirations, drawing from that for my design. And so now let's talk about how I'm actually trying to accomplish this. So step one was to create the pattern, and for my pattern I took this H&M tuxedo blazer that I got from Goodwill for $3. This is actually the same blazer that I used for my Tom Riddle look. I picked out all of that hand embroidery that I put all over the chest. You can see all the little pock marks here, that's the one I used, and tore it apart. I seam ripped carefully, taking pictures along the way, taking notes of all kinds of construction details, how the collars were stitched together, where the pockets went, how the lining fit in, how the welt pockets were created, and really paid attention to it. I've never actually made a men's suit before, like from beginning to end, the whole thing. And so this was a huge learning experience for me in pattern making, garment construction, and just how this stuff is put together. You kind of have to tear it apart to learn how it's put together. Lots of seam ripping, lots of scissors, and I really discovered there's a lot of internal mechanisms in there that I'm going to show you. I created my pattern on old sheets, just cheap old sheets that I used to pattern out everything for the first time, so that if I make any mistakes, I can always go back and fix it later. Then I tore that apart and laid it out carefully over my blue suiting fabric. I used this little trick with scissors to add magnets to the side to add a 1/2 inch seam allowance along the bottom of each pattern piece, just to give myself a little extra wiggle room. And I use my Famore cutting shears, which I absolutely love, for this entire project. Put everything on the dress form so that I can keep track of all the pattern pieces while I'm working on it. For the skirt feature, I thread marked all of the lines because I didn't want chalk lines getting left on the suit, and started assembling it and putting it all together. And so here is getting to see some of the process, which is really weird. I'm not able to share this on Instagram like I normally am because it's all secret. But now that we're after the fashion show, I can show you. So here's the suit so far. You see all of these base stitches are holding together the pads, the the padding that's on the inside of the suit, which I never knew was in there. I always kind of wondered, like, how do you get that shape, that solidness there across the chest and across the shoulders? And this is all this internal stuff that's in here. And so I just tore this out of the suit over there and put it into mine. And right now it's basted in so that it can just kind of stay in place while I'm working on it. I'm gonna still got to completely sew it in. But here we see the skirt feature. And so instead of doing the Alexander McQueen skirt feature, I took the Doctor Strange tunic. So we've got that over here in case I need to refer to it for anything. This skirt feature that's on the outside of his costume, I took that and put it onto my costume. I extended it a little bit, made it a little bit wider because the one on his costume is pretty narrow. But yeah, this is all that the internal stuff right there, folding it out. All of these base stitches are my pleat lines. I really didn't want to use chalk or any kind of fabric marker on this fabric because it doesn't come off and I really want it to stay pristine and pretty. So I hand basted all of these marks here so that I would know where all of the pleat lines are. And it's not lined or anything yet, that's still to go. But yes, I was really nervous about my my darts right here, but they came out really well. I've got the welt pocket here on the chest and then another pocket here over on the side. And yes, it is a real pocket. It's got everything in there. And this is what it looks like from the inside. So you can see the inside of the pocket there. All of this is going to be covered up by lining, so we'll never see this again, so say goodbye to that. And then we have the back of the coat. It is going to have an asymmetrical hem, which I'm really excited about. It starts at its lowest point there at the top of the pleating and then comes up and around to the front of the coat. So I think that's gonna look pretty cool when it's all hemmed and put together. It's got this slit up the back so that I can sit down and yeah, I'm really happy with my seams here. This lined up really perfectly here with the collar. For the collar of the jacket, it's a shawl collar, so it doesn't have the points or the lapels like it would on most suits or even on this suit. I had to change the pattern in order to make it a shawl collar, which took 3 days. It took me 3 days to figure out how to do that because I have never done that before, and so I had to figure out how to pattern and make this work. So this will be all folded down once the collar is on. And to show you the collar and some progress on that, this is the collar so far. So this is the lapels of the collar. So I am embroidering and stitching all of these little X's onto this. So this is going to mimic the collar on the costume, which has multicolored X's all over it and little gaps here, but this suit is brand new, so it's not going to have gaps. It's going to be solid and new and shiny. And so I've been doing all of that, and I'll be showing you a little bit about how I do that. So now I have to do this side over here. I've got base stitches coming along here. Again, I don't want to use fabric markers or chalk or anything else on this fabric. So based stitches, these super loose stitches that are really easy just to take out once you're done with them. I'm a big fan of base stitches, and I see them a lot in tailoring. So when people are making suits and tailors, they tend to base all of this stuff on. So I'm really just trying to mimic that. Just mimicking what I see and trying it out myself. And hey, it works. They know what they're talking about. My Janome N7 Continental has been a huge help and my best friend through this process. This is all stuff from interfacing, so don't worry too much about that. But here we've got all kinds of stitches that are built into this machine. It can do so much. It's crazy, like all the stuff that it can do. And it's kind of those things like, when am I ever going to use all of these stitches? And then you do a project like this, and it's like, surprise, the perfect one is right there. I really wish that I had had this machine when I did my first Doctor Strange costume, because this is so much faster and so much smoother than what I did before in 2018. So that is the stitch that I'm using here. You see all of those little X's all lined up in neat little rows. And now I've got to do this other side. I'm going to be tapering it down here at the bottom. This is probably a detail that no one's ever going to see because it'll be on the inside of the jacket, but I'll know it's there, and when I unbutton it, I'll get to see it. And just to show you a bit more of the process, this was a test swatch that I did of all the different blue threads that I have. So I just lined up all my different blues, and Haley helped me pick out which one I should do. We decided to go with the one that I just have the most thread of, because if I ran out of thread halfway through this, that would look really weird if I had to suddenly change thread color. So I've got my blue lined up back there, and now we can do some stitching. So as far as how I'm doing this, I'm noticing that the X's themselves are actually in between kind of these two bars right here. So just the bar that's holding the foot on, that's about as wide as the X's go. So what I'm trying to do is keep one X in line from the previous row, and then trying to keep in between that bar for the next row. And so seeing the stitches come into place up close here, it just goes back and forth and goes like that. So that way I get them not to run into each other, and to try to get some kind of connection here. They don't line up perfectly, but it's not, oh, they do there, look at that. But it's not really what I'm going for. They're all gonna blend together. So I think they're looking pretty good. I'm loving this stitch. Just finished another row, and just to show you what it looks like on the other side, so I'm using a black interfacing for this suit, just so none of the white accidentally pokes through or is visible, and just keeps everything nice and dark. So this is what the stitches look like from the other side. You can see the light blue is getting pulled down, and then there's a navy blue bobbin thread underneath, which isn't visible from the top, but I'm just trying to be consistent, and I had a navy bobbin thread in there for sewing the suit, so that's what it is. And that's where all this black stuff is coming from. I'll just use a magic eraser to get rid of that. It comes right off. But yeah, that's what it looks like from the underside. So a couple more rows to go. And there we go. 2 finished collars. So with the collars being done, that is actually the last step I needed for the external. Here are the sleeves. The sleeves are done already, so those are finished. The lapels are now finished, and the outside of the suit is now finished. So now it's time to work on the lining. My approach to making linings is pretty much just making the suit again in reverse. So I am using this beautiful navy satin gifted to me by Shannon Fabrics. It is really gorgeous and really high quality, and I love their products, and I'm so happy to partner with them. So I'll be using this to cut out my lining pieces. And so for the lining, I'm basically taking my lapel, or my the front of the suit jacket, and I made a copy of that pattern, and it's sticking together. Here we go. So just made a copy, and now I'm going to take the collar pattern that I made and just lay that out against that, and then I'm going to make a cut, and then this is going to be my lining for the front of the suit. So I used my Famore rotary blade to just make that cut right there, and so that is going to be my lining for the front of the suit. I have to remember to add seam allowance here. Don't forget that very important part, because this does not include seam allowance. There is a seam allowance included on this side because that's how I made my lapel pattern, but there is not seam allowance on this side, so gotta remember to use that. I usually do 1/2 inch for my seam allowances. And I also iron out all of my pattern pieces using my Oliso Smart Iron, using all of my wonderful friends this morning. This is also why I love having a massive sewing table, because I take up all of it with all of these pieces. Ironing board over there, dress form over here, everything is within a circular distance from where I need it. So very helpful. And after stitching it together, we have a lovely inner lining panel. So I've got my seam allowance there, like you see, and that's gonna go on the inside of this suit. So now it's time to do the rest of it. Now I have the lining sewn, and it's all nice and silky. The Shannon Fabrics satin worked so well. It doesn't pucker or get those like weird little thread marks. like some other satins do. It sewed really well, and so now all of that is sewn together. So now it's going to be turning all of this inside out, as well as doing the skirt panel here and getting the lining on the inside of that, which I have laying out over here. I laid the lining fabric on top of the skirt piece and then brought my ironing board over to the sewing table to carefully iron out each of the pleats so that they would be permanently affixed in the right direction. I closed up the jacket by taking Wonder clips to pin the lapel line all the way around from the top to the bottom of each side. I really like Wonder clips a lot. They keep everything in place and you don't risk stabbing yourself over and over or pins falling out or anything. I have a massive bucket of them and I used about half of them for this crazy long lapel. I then had to stitch the lapel line all the way around and then turn the entire suit inside out. It was pretty easy to sew. The only issues I really ran into with the skirt feature, there were so many layers to that. It was pretty tough to sew through it, but my machine handled it, and it came out nice and crisp and clean. So I just finished the jacket. It was a ton of work. I'm really happy with it. My hem coming up was exactly what I wanted. My kind of Alexander McQueen inspired swooshy sashy thing right there. Looks really cool. Making men's suits is hard. But I'm really happy with the silhouette. Just have to add the buttons and it'll be fully finished. So it's been a couple days. I am now working on the trousers. And what I did was I found a pair of trousers from Goodwill, fit me well, and tore them apart so that I could learn how to make trousers. I think the most difficult part is going to be the waistband and the zip, something I have never done before, but we're going to give it a shot. I've already finished the back pockets, so these are pretty much welt pockets that, again, it was figuring out order of operations. It was just how were these made with the pants that I tore apart, and then how do I put it back together? So using the actual pants as the pattern, figuring out where the welt pocket goes, how all of this fits together. So there's a little piece in there and a little piece in there that's all sewn up underneath there. I still need to add the button. I don't have the buttons that I need for these. I need to cut out the buttonhole, but yes, I've got two backs of the pants, and now I need to do the fronts of the pants, which include adding in the pockets, which I think will be easier because they're not welts, at least I'm saying that now. And then it's figuring out the waistband and making sure that it actually fits me. I sewed all of the layers of the waistband together, and then we had finished trousers, and they fit and everything, and zipped and pockets, and they did all the things that trousers are supposed to do. So we're 1 week away from the fashion show. I'm very tired. I've been working a lot. I've been working away on the embroidery on the cape, so there has been a ton of that. It's like a bajillion symbols, and underneath here is a bit of the embroidery process. So this is the Hatch software that I'm using, and you can see all of these symbols laying out and organized there. Doing that on Hatch. Hatch is really good. You can get a 30-day free trial. I recommend it. I'm now working on the Tunic shirt that's going to go under the suit. So I'm using the same pattern, or a similar pattern, that I used from my Ragnarok Doctor Strange. I'm changing the shape of the neck a little bit so that I can have two kind of like kimono style layers underneath. And for the fabrics, I'm using satin from Shannon Fabrics. They were kind enough to send me this beautiful navy satin. I love their satin, it's so nice. And then also I'm using this kind of like two-way stretch velvety stuff that I have had since high school. I have had this as part of my fabric hoard since high school, and I'm finally using it today. I think I used some of it on my Merlin. Yeah, my Merlin hat I made with this velvet. But I've had it forever and ever, and it's don't throw away anything because you might be in a crazy fashion show and need fabric. And because I'm working with stretch velvet here, I've put on my machine's walking foot because velvet is really awful to work with, honestly. And it shifts around and it moves and it's just really, really awful. And one of those reasons is because on your sewing machine, these teeth under here only pull from the bottom. So there's only pressure coming in and direction coming in from the bottom of your two pieces of fabric. So what can happen is that bottom piece can start to move forward as the top piece moves back, and everything just gets wrinkled and awful. This foot, however, creates pressure and movement from the top as well. So you've got movement coming in from the top and the bottom, and there's little mechanisms in there that help move everything along from the top and the bottom. I just did a test here and it worked really well. Over here, this was a test with the regular foot, just the regular sewing foot, and the velvet shifted, the velvet moved while I was sewing and created this bizarre pucker here, but on this piece everything just flowed through really smoothly. And so I'm going to attempt to sew the lining into this top piece, and I'll show you how it works in a second. Y'all, that worked so well. The walking foot is now my new favorite thing ever. Look how clean this is. Oh my gosh, this is satin and velvet. Like, two of the hardest materials to work with because they pucker and they move and they're awful and I hate them. Maybe it's just because I was using the wrong tools the whole time. And then the suit was finished. The jacket, the trousers, the shirt, all of it together. This was a really cool moment. It was done. So that is going to be the end of part 1 of the Her Universe Fashion Show project video. In usual Michael fashion, this has gone on a lot longer than originally planned, but you get a part 2, which is already up, so you get it at the same time. So just head on over to that video and I'll see you then.